Mike, we're at it again.
What?
We're at it again. The YouTube sensation start.
Mm. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, everyone. We are going to wait for another couple of minutes, maybe one or two people are still joining, and yeah, so let's give them the chance to join before we start.
Shall we start, Mike?
Yes, I think we can start. So, okay, welcome everyone. Good afternoon, good morning to everyone. So welcome to our 5-part webinar series. Today it's part 1, QMULUS basics, SCADA that does do more. And we are today covering a couple of basic stuff. Yeah, according to QMULUS, and yeah, I will lead you through the presentation, and later on Frank will take care of the live presentation of the
live
QMULUS
presentation.
Exactly. Okay, so housekeeping as usual, everybody's muted. If you have some questions, please use the appropriate icon you will see in the Zoom tool. Ask your questions. We will do our best to answer all the questions. After we went through the whole content of the webinar, and if we cannot answer all the questions, we will make sure that you receive your answer within an email or later on. Okay, so today we have Frank with us. So maybe Frank, you would like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Frank Pieterkoop. I'm an engineer here in Nitrix Metal, Montreal, Canada. I'm on the QMULUS team. I've been in this team. It's great working with these guys for 2 years now or so. And I mean, I'm mechanical. They're more software and statistics, but we make a great team because I know my furnaces, I know customers, I know what's requested, what's needed, what's used, and software is very receptive to the needs of the user. So that's my role.
Thank you, Frank. And we have myself. I'm Mike Löbke. I'm from Germany, and I'm in steel industry since, I'm not sure, 15 years, something like that. I joined Nitrix 4 years ago. I'm now leading the digitalization and software development, and part of it, the biggest portion of it, is QMULUS, and I'm really proud to present it to you since we have worked on it a couple of years now, and I think it's a great product which will help all of you in your daily business. So let's dive into it. No, we don't dive into it. Would like to introduce some other people who are not attending today. But if you would like to learn more about QMULUS, especially for North America, please contact Kurt Willems. His contact information will be sent out to you after the webinar. If you have any questions, would like to have a direct presentation of one of us presenting directly to you QMULUS and how you can profit of it, let us know.
I just would like to add that Kurt is from Milwaukee, not Montreal, Canada. He's from
Okay.
He's actually based from Milwaukee, and unfortunately, he can't join us today.
Okay. Same for Daniel Goncharek. He is our the corresponding guy for Kurt in Europe. So he is your main contact if you're from Europe or from Asia. So get in contact with both of them and ask for a presentation, whatever you would like to know. Okay, but now let's dive into it. So as already mentioned, we have a 5-part series. The first taking place today, QMULUS Basics. The second one will be in November. There we have some more sophisticated topics, a bit, let's say, more exciting. It's audit, quality, historical data analysis. Then in December, we have again data analysis. This is more in the direction of anomaly detection and predictive quality. The fourth session will be in January. We will talk about asset and process management. The fifth session will be about advanced tech. That's how we call it. It's about AI, predictive processes, and all the stuff which is related to, let's call it AI and the magic. Okay, for today's session, we have 4 topics only. We give you some general information about QMULUS. Then we will talk briefly about the whole structure and the navigation, how it's created or how it's done in QMULUS. Afterwards, Frank will take over with the live presentation of the development system. And then we have some time for questions and answers. Before we dive into it, I would like to let you know that we are showing development data. We are live in the development environment. That means that all the data might not be accurate, that it might have been manipulated, and it's definitely not complete. So that might lead to some awkward looking processes
have, like, time
and so on.
shifts and stuff
exactly.
like that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's dive into it. General information, we talk about infrastructure and we call it browser. So QMULUS is making use of a hybrid infrastructure. We have on the one hand, we have the on-premises setup, the on-premises part of QMULUS, and we have the so-called cloud part of QMULUS. And cloud does not automatically mean that it's in an external cloud like AWS or Azure. It can also be hosted in your internal cloud, which means you have a server, cluster, whatever, to host Kubernetes, the services we need to run QMULUS. QMULUS is a containerized service, which makes it easy for us to maintain it. It's as well as easy for you to maintain it. If you're running it in a cloud environment, would like to assure you that all the customer environments are separated from each other, so all the data is completely standalone. There's no connection between anything. Okay, so let's talk about a bit more in detail about the on-premises structure. The on-premises structure is really important since it's meant and it's necessary for you to have to keep your processes running. So operation has to run at all times. So even if the statistics part, the AI part, exactly, all the stuff is not available, since you might have a network breakdown with it's not reachable. The cloud and AWS is just not reachable. It's down, which is really unlikely, to be honest, but it may happen. You still have the option to run your operations without any problems. Yeah, for this we have the so-called background processes installed on a local machine in your on-premises and your location, and these background services are communicating directly to your assets, to your equipment, and to the local PT98 or NPM databases, so the data buffers we are using. This is also really important since all the data which you might have on premises, as for example an ERP system, a quality system, whatever you have in mind, can be directly connected via these background processes to QMULUS as well. In most cases, we don't need, let's say, handwritten, tailor-made background process. In most cases, we can use Node-RED as a third-party tool, which can be used to read SQL data, read files out of a file structure and move it to the QMULUS data warehouse. Let's call it like that. Really important is the QMULUS gateway. This is a bidirectional communication between your local components, if it's the on-premise part, and the QMULUS main functionalities. So this can be, as mentioned already, on premises. It can be in the cloud. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. We won't go into detail today, but just to mention that. In an unlikely case that QMULUS is not reachable if it's hosted in the cloud, there is a QMULUS fallback structure. I'm covering that here because this question is always asked. So what happens if there's no internet available? In this case, you have a reduced QMULUS on site, which you can reach via intranet. You just type in your URL as usual, and the reverse proxy will decide that the online version of QMULUS is not available. So it will redirect you directly to the web server, which is hosted somewhere at your location. I said reduced QMULUS version since it's really reduced to what is needed for operations. There's no statistics, no machine learning, no AI. And you can just run your machines, you can run your processes to not disturb production. Anything to add from your side, Frank?
I was going to ask a question regarding the on-prem. If I'm hosting on-prem, I don't understand one thing. I go to Starbucks, I use my tablet, and I can log into QMULUS. I get that because I'm contacting Amazon or Azure or whatever. But if I'm hosting on-prem, how do I access it?
Yeah, in this case, it's really hard to access this because you would most likely connect via VPN to the local network and then use the intranet URL. So this is a question for the local IT. Just going
so
to
VPN first, establish that connection, and then I can
exactly.
my link would work, my shortcut would work.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I mentioned that already, browser. So QMULUS is in fact a native web application. It can run on all common browsers. To name them is Chrome, Safari, Edge, Firefox, and it's designed for mobile devices and also for desktop usage, or you can run it on your laptop. You can run it really everywhere. We don't have any preferences. You can run it on any operating system since it's really a browser application. You can open it with every browser. The on-premises setup, this is a different topic. We can install it on a Windows machine. We can also install it in a Linux machine. Also here, the most common setups are supported by QMULUS. Okay, let's talk about navigation and structure, tiles and app groups, tree structure. So to navigate functionalities within apps, we use application groups and tiles. We have 5 main groups: process, operation, data insight, maintenance, and configuration. And all of them contain a couple of applications. For example, process has materials, parts, simulators. Operation has audit quality. Live app, production logs, for example, which we will cover today. We have remote control. In data insight, we have alarm statistics. We have Grafana, which is self-service dashboarding. We have history and trends, ML prototyping, maintenance. We have anomaly detection, configuration, asset management, for example, settings, user management. Yeah, you can just read it, and you will see it later on in the live version anyways. We navigate between assets using a asset tree, so a hierarchical view of your company. You can see it in a good example on the right. You will see that later on as well. So this is a screenshot taken out of the development environment. You see it's Nitrix Heat Treatment Services as the company name. And then we have, for example, the different locations of Nitrix. And we have also some artificial locations like Montreal. Yeah, exactly. Doug's desk. Yeah, exactly. And underneath this group of assets, you find the assets themselves. Okay. So that's it, I think, from my side. I would like to lead over to Frank, who can just directly give us an impression of the live system.
All right. So I am now hopefully sharing the screen, right? You do see the HTML QMULUS. I see all of my tiles. I see my groups here, the operation, process, data, insight. That was the groups that Mike mentioned before. And out of all of these tiles, we're really just going to focus on a few today. Basically, that's part of our 5-part series. So I will begin with the live app. So this is the tile I will most likely use from afar to kind of see a global view. So to point out on Mike's drop down, as you can see here, I have my night riding environment with all of my groups, okay, including going down to, here we go, Doug's desk, right? So I have here my night riding environment down to Montreal to Doug's desk, and these furnaces are associated to Doug's desk. I can go into any of these, but at least this has some data that is realistic. So this would be a screen I recommend as like a global view. This is something that more than one customer has put a large screen TV. This is up on the corridor close to this bay. And at a glance, you get to see what's up, if there's any alarms, which are running, which are not running, again, at a glance. If I were to dive into a furnace, so if I go into my first furnace here, I'm presented with a kind of overview, so I can zoom into, by default, 24 hours, reduce time or increase time or go custom. As recorded, it will update. So therefore, whatever, I have the reality as it progresses. My load number, job description, start time, and all that recipe is indicated. And now what's interesting here is my chart. First of all, my bar upstairs, sorry, my bar on top is the one that tells me the actual running, right? This was my job. And if I zoom out, I'll see many of these jobs, and I can hover, find whatever job number 1, 2, 3, 4, click on it and go into the production log, we'll go later. I have pens. I have a timestamp. Oh, I have a refresh there. I have a timestamp. I have pens, and here's my actual values of all of my pens. And these pens came up automatically because Frank chose this default. And so for M1, whatever, these are the pens I chose, and they appeared to me. Needless to say, I could deselect all, and I could go back in and choose whatever furnace, whatever pens I would like to add, and I put my zones or interior, whatever. I can turn pens on and off, and I just replaced my view. Of course, that's not my default. I would have to reload my default to get back to it. If we go a little lower, I have an indication of any current alarms. If there were, they would be appear here, and I can also see what is the current status in terms of recipe. So I'm in a cool stage of recipe 15, job 7971. So this kind of gives me overview, detail onto what's happening like right now, okay? But I have a bit of a graphical point of view and not necessarily, sorry, I have a chart point of view, but not necessarily a graphical point of view. If I'm interested in seeing more of the controller, more to view what the controller would show me as if I were standing in front of it, I can go back to my tile and choose remote control, or because it's kind of hyperlinks are easy to make, if I go into Michigan or in any other of these plants, including Doug's desk, I can jump into the remote control and I would see the furnace in question. This is a nitrix furnace. Oh yeah, it's running right now, but let's go to my famous S2, because I like S2 because it's my Proton baby. No disrespect to my nitrix baby. All right. I like this one because now I can show you multiple screens. So Nitrix typically has one screen, but in I could program more than one screens. And this is, if you would walk in front of S2, and if this were live, you would see this exactly the same with a minute delay type of thing, 30 seconds delay. But as you know, on a controller, I could hit the button and change screens. Well, here's the drop down, so I can see the many views, right? I have the same features as if I were standing in front. Now, in addition to the view, which an operator is very comfortable with, I can see my alarms. So S2 has one alarm right now for nitrogen. I could search for the last 7 days and get a pop-up with all of the alarms that happened in the last 7 days. Now, interesting, and it may be important for me at this moment. Again, this is, I'm standing in front of the furnace and I need to know something about alarms. This is where I look. If I really am interested in doing more of a profound alarm analysis, I will be using a different tool, which we'll get into another webinar. Okay, so this is what happened in the last 7 days for alarms. Load list is another of my favorite features. All right, so the fundamentals are an asset needs to produce, and if it needs to produce, I need to put parts in it and I need to run it. These parts have an associated part number, job number, recipe number, work order number. Parts could be mixed together, parts cannot be mixed together. So this is fundamentally, QMULUS was designed from this point on, right? So S2 has a couple of planned loads. So if I'm an operator and I have my work order 1, 2, 3, 2, 4 on the cart, I could actually push this in and click play. And as an operator, I associate 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 2, 4, sorry, and I say start. I had no idea what recipe I'm running. And that's the way it was designed, because it was predetermined. This is my recipe number. Now, if I'm an operator who is about to load or has already loaded, but this is not planned yet, or if I am more of a dispatcher, I am planning the loads for the day, then I can do new. And in doing new, I'm because I was in S2, I picked my S2 furnace. I want to start it, let's say now. So let's keep it there. Recipe. So if I choose my recipe, 44, do I have a recipe? Yes, I do. I have a recipe 44 with a load identifier called Frank, because that's me. Frank. All right. And I put in a part. Now, remember that my web part was, where's my web part? Webinar example. My webinar example, we noticed before that it was recipe 100, but I chose 44, right? So if I put a load identifier, again, 1, 2, 3, customer order number, whatever, PO987, amount, I have whatever, 22 of them at a weight of 2, submit. All right, not allowed on this furnace with this recipe. So
can you just show that maybe later on how you can configure that, just briefly?
With the
Where does this come from?
Also,
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think that could be interesting. Yeah, just go ahead and maybe you can just switch over.
Okay, so I delete the part, start all over, cancel, new. Again, load identifier, again, my Frank. And of course, I don't need to do that, by the way, but anyway. Here's my web part, webinar example. Again, now I put, oh, by the way, I just clicked on that, recipe 100 popped up. So no mistakes are allowed. 22 of them, there you go, done. So now this Frank here is, here, this load identifier Frank with no work order number, my bad. I should have put a work order number, is ready to start. Again, I can, because I made a mistake, I'm going to put my customer PO 987654 update, and now I have my part that's ready to be processed. So my operator can pick and start. Of course, if I pick more than one part and all of them are recipe 100, great, it's going to save. If one of them is not allowed to be in 100, it will be interlocked. So if, okay, I'll just finish this tab here, but if I was in recipe, sorry, if I were a real furnace running a real job right now, and I click on recipe, either in Nitrex or in Protherm, if the recipe is running, it tells you what's the recipe name, what's the recipe number, what step you're in, and that would appear here. And there will be a big green line across step number X, which is the step that you're currently in. I don't have that here, but I could give you an idea of what that looks like if I go here to my recipe, and I will stick to S2 because that's where we just came from. I have now opened up the recipe book. So this is all of the recipes that are in the S2 family. So if I were to take a temporary or whatever test recipe, and I open this guy up, what happens now is I'm going to see the makeup of this recipe with a couple of interesting points. So first of all, this group. So if I create a recipe, whatever, 4-hour carburizing, and I save it in Eurotherm number 1, it's in Eurotherm number 1, and it's going to stay in Eurotherm number 1. And if I go to furnace 2, I have to create another recipe. But by doing this group, then QMULUS now is going to share these recipes with the many Eurotherms, okay? And I use that with trademark name there, whatever. Don't sue me. This CP associates this recipe to all furnaces that are able to run CP. So this recipe, S2 CP test FP auto, this is a recipe that will be selectable and can run in all equipment that has the CP group. So I make a change once and it applies to all. Having said that, I got some information, description, diffusion model. We're going to skip that because that's going to be its own webinar later. But basically, I have all my steps, as you can expect a recipe to have. He told, okay, if I expand a step, this particular step here is temperature. Well, if I go in the drop down, I open up temperature equals 1700 plus or minus tolerance, end condition, well, it's a hold, so therefore it's time. C potential is, I don't know, 0.95, oh, 95% carbon. Sorry, this one is one of those diffusion, so it's not 0.95 carbon. It's when I reach 95% of the carbon on my surface, that's when it stops. Okay, but we'll get into that later. And I have some events. A lot of controllers have events that can be turned on and off with each step, and this particular furnace is also programmed with these events. All right, so gone through this. So Mike, to come back to your question, if I
that would be great.
I go to I go to parts. So now,
yep.
If I'm in my parts and I'm going to find my web part, or maybe I should create a new part.
Oh, whatever you like, but you can just manipulate that.
If I take my webinar example and I modify it, right, we're going to look inside, and I have a name, a description. Well, I could edit, by the way.
Yep.
It has a material, which is important for this whole diffusion. Customer drawing, I could associate it. So then you can filter, right? The more you program, the more you can filter and search. Then I have attributes. Now, this, I reminder to everyone that this is my dev environment, and my dev environment has a lot of tests that are needed. Okay, you can appreciate maximum, minimum hardness, things like effective case, as received, that information. Then I finally am able to associate this part. So let me just edit it. I assume my user has access to edit it. I assume, yeah, right. So I now am able to associate that part with this furnace. This is the recipe number, and I'm not able to put more than 100 parts in that furnace. Okay, that was determined by the parts manager. Now, what you saw here was manually entered, and if you are manufacturing, it's doable. If you are heat treating, this starts to become a bit of a headache. So this is where Node-RED, I guess, would be a nice link to have to that manufacturing, the MES system, so that it tells me this part, this recipe. Now the link is done automatically, right? So mistakes are prevented. All right. Anything else I should add, Mike?
No. I think we should jump over to production logs.
Production logs is the heart. Yes, production logs is, did I press?
I just reload them.
Yeah, there we go. So production logs. Now, production logs are the heart of QMULUS, okay, of our system, because it's what allows me to find past parts. Okay, so live was more what's happening now, and production logs is more what has happened and how can I find stuff. So if I can search for, we saw we had a recipe running was a 7997, so I could type that in and I'll definitely find it. I could filter by asset, right? So I can filter by, I don't know, something like Chicago, and if I were to click, oh, sorry, my mouse clicked somewhere else. If I click on Chicago, right, I would basically filter all of Chicago. If I look for Doug's desk, right, so I see Doug's desk, which would incorporate all of his fake nitriders, or if I click on nitride 2, then it would filter only that. And of course, for the current week or last 7 days, it's not so important. But if you're looking at, well, I know I ran something and it's a bigger time frame, then maybe I do want this to filter down, right? So if I go to X furnace here, S2, right? In the current week, this is what we have in our copy database, right? But in the last 7 days, this is what we ran. And notice I will not see here like things like that are like planned will not appear here because they did not happen, right? If I were to type for Frank, and well, maybe in the last 7 days I did not write Frank, but if I look in the last year, I'm sure I put Frank in as a PO or something in this dev environment.
Definitely, yes.
But so I could search for my work order or whatever. I choose what I'm interested in. I click on my chart, and now I get a new window, which is my production log, and this is my tool that I would use to analyze the job. So before in the live, we had a 24-hour continuous chart. Now the first point is the time. I should be, if I'm talking to you, I should face here. The time at start and the time at end. If we flip this here in production logs, this is exactly that time, start, stop, right? So I can't go back, I can't go forward. Interesting point though, this is S2, this job on this date, I actually could go back to previous job. So I could play with previous job, but it's always these sections of productive time, okay? So, all right. So if we are in here, I have certain pens, which are a certain template, or what do we call it? Yeah, my favorites, right? And these are my favorites, and I have it. Now, interesting, I get to virtual signal. It's going to be its own discussion later. Virtual signal is a nice feature in QMULUS. Everyone has temperature, right? That's a pen that everyone has, and everyone may have more than one temperatures, but I could create a new virtual signal, call it average temperature Frank, because why not? And that value, that new pen that could be used in all of QMULUS is the average of whatever I programmed it. The min, the max, the hottest, the coldest. Give me the minimum pressure, or pressure is this sensor between this and this, and is this sensor between that and that. So I can actually have one value and it stitches it all together. Anyway, we'll go into virtual signals later. But another interesting feature in QMULUS, actually, let me finish this and then I'll go back. Alarms. So in this particular job, these are the alarms that happened. This is the recipe as it ran. So if somebody jumped a stage, extended time, reduced time, changed carbon potential, nitrating potential, whatever, the reality would show. And any observations, which is the magic that you mentioned before, no observations were noticed. This is another discussion in another webinar. But I get to see here that I'm able to draw lines, which is recipe steps and alarms happened exactly here, exactly here, exactly. These are, the blue is a step change, and the recipe is red is when the alarm happened. Of course, I could disable that, right? Show alarms, show notes. Of course, I could put notes in here if I want to write something. So all of this is possible. But I want to show you something else before I leave this frame of mind. So let's go back to my production logs. Okay, and what I'm super interested in or excited to show you, again, we choose my favorite as 2, accept. I'll show you the last 7 days. And I chose this filter because I could see that there's 3 recipes that are very similar that ran in consecutive time, right? I now could pick all 3, pick all 4, pick all 5, and compare. And now what I'm doing is I have painted 3 charts, right? Well, none, 1. That's that job. This is the second one superimposed. This is the third one superimposed. I get to see how the furnace behaved one compared to another. And new is I'm able to, extend time, shift time, so that I superimpose them really nicely. And this tool is a little bit, we need to work on it, but it's still not so difficult to line up. And already I could see here, right? If you look at these black lines, this is my power. And I could see how this job, the 3 jobs took significantly different power, or significantly is also subjective, right? But they took different power, and I get to see this as troubleshooting that, okay, there was a difference, even though the carbon set point and the temperature set point pretty much line up nicely. There's a difference in reaching. So surface area or weight definitely was different in all 3. Shall I jump to asset management?
Yes, I think that would be a good chance because it's concluding.
We're okay with time.
The session. It's fine. Yeah,
I'll just
we have a couple of minutes.
Okay, asset management. I can go, I don't know, Chicago, Montreal, Michigan, whatever. If we stuck with S2, let's stick with S2, but I don't know if I have manuals and drawings here. Just let me take a quick look. Nope. Well, there's a picture. Now let's go somewhere else. Let's go to Michigan, M1. All right. So if I go to Michigan, I know that I have manuals here. Yes, I do. Okay, let's start from the beginning. So I choose an asset and it was entered. We have entered information such as, I don't know, serial number and capabilities, max temp. Now, max temp in the certs, right? This thing has a TUS between min and max. And I should run this furnace between min and max. Not that I can't, but I shouldn't. So these numbers, maximum flows, maximum temperatures, instrumentation type, Boeing certification, Ford, that type of thing. If you have certain criteria, we can enter them in. And as of today, QMULUS just shows you. The next natural step for us is if max temp is 575, because that's what the rating is for this furnace, then if I load the furnace where the maximum temperature is 600, it should warn me, right? So that is next step. Target productivity, this is, again, will be used in a KPI in a future webinar. As you know, the old guy in Nitrix, as the engineer in Nitrix, this is the one that excites me because I do it once and then it helps me in the future. So I leave my desk, I grab my lunchbox, and I'm going to the cafeteria. I pass by the furnaces, and then someone interrupts me. Hey, Frank, this is not turning, or this is not opening, or this is not clicking. Okay. I know, or I know you told me this thing should click or should open, and it's not turning or it's not working. So I get it, but I would love to see the drawings. Now, I don't have the drawings with me because I was going for lunch. And the person who interrupted me may not have them. They're definitely not in maintenance or whatever. And I need to know at least this page. So now, this is the beautiful thing about QMULUS, right? QMULUS is web-based. So this page that I'm on right now is this. So if I take this URL, I copy, I go to a Google search, QR code generator, and I paste, and I do generate, I get this. And this QR code I have printed on a label and stuck it to the outside of this particular furnace so that I could go in with my tablet, I scan, you can see, yeah, you can see the tablet. I scan the QR code, click, put in my username and password because it is, I have to authenticate first. But now it's equivalent to me seeing this page, looking at my electrical schematics, click on it, download, put my lunchbox down, of course, get to see whatever is supposed to click, not click, go back, see the relay, see the output, done. I could diagnose. I did not open the panel yet, unless I had to look at the relay, but whatever, you know what I mean. I have the information I need at the my fingertips when I need it. So I have basically uploaded a document, thrown in electrical schematics, some mechanical, and manuals, neutralizer manuals, safety manuals, operating procedures, TUS certs, calibration certificates of a thermocouple, whatever. Slap these in. Whoever needs them has easy access to them. I will stop it here. Maybe we'll do a question or two, because this sensor setting, sensor mapping, I want to do that as a topic that goes into how data is used, how control loops are analyzed in QMULUS, right? I have a set point, I have an act value, and that's a closed loop. So we'll get into that later. All right. So Mike, are you looking at the chats? I'm looking at this.
Let me briefly switch back. So I'm going to take over your screen again.
I have to stop sharing.
No, you don't have to. I just grab it from you. No problem. So we just saw the live presentation. Hopefully now you see the original presentation. No, this is wrong, right?
Well, we're a few pages after that.
I go here.
I now I can see the chats and the questions.
Okay. So let me briefly switch the screen to the right one.
Hello, Antonio Carlos. That's the first one. I take it.
Yeah, you can use this question.
Oh, okay. All right. Can I see who changed the recipe? Versioning. Yes. Yes, because in my recipe book, right? So if I go to app overview, recipes, I select the furnace. Of course, Frank has access to this particular tile, which is not necessarily taken for granted, right? And not everyone has access. So I click on my recipe and I opened up that temporary recipe I had before. If I do a save as, it becomes version 0. But if I do a change and I save, it will prompt me, do you want to increment the revision? And at that point, the recipe book will have recipe 1 by default. So any user that logs in and checks, it will be recipe 1. Yes, I could go back and find other recipes, other revisions, and I want to iterate. If someone ran version 0, all of 2023, and then Christmas time, January 1st, we changed the revision. All of 2024, we're running version 1. If I do a production log and I search for this job back in 2023, I'm going to see the job as it ran, which was version 0. And if it's current, I look at a job now, it's going to be the new version. So yes, all of this is recorded. Is this used more at command level or at the user level? Command level is, I guess, management. So I don't know how everyone runs their shop. I mean, if you're a small enough shop, you are command level and user level. You see, like user Frank has access to all of these tiles, and the tiles that are even experimental. When we generate an environment for a customer, then that environment is going to have, let's say, a super user, and then the super user can create other users and give or remove access. But I can then have 10 or more, whatever, users, and these users will have different tiles, different permissions. So I guess the correct answer is, I don't know how you want to use it. Yes, I can user access 1, typically. You cannot change the recipe, or user access 2. Yes, you can change the recipe. So it's up to you. You could leave all that out. Therefore, you will get more phone calls. Therefore, you will log in from your cottage and make the change so that your operators in the field could actually run it. I hope that question was answered properly.
Yeah, maybe one final question before we close for the webinar. We have been asked that really often already. So, are there options to export data? And what about reporting?
Okay. KPI reporting is going to be its own webinar. So we purposely excluded that from this webinar today. This is really supposed to be like basics. But I can export, if I have a list, when I did a production log search and I searched and I saw all these outcome, right? The query, the output of the query, I can export that. If I have a chart, I can export that. I have a PDF export and I have a CSV export of every job and of every query, I guess. I'm going to use the word query, right? Because if I'm doing the search and I hide all of the furnaces except for Doug's desk, I can now export that list of all the furnaces in Doug's desk and all how it ran in a little while.
Okay.
What time is it? 18.
Yeah, one question. Come on, Frank.
If you have the schematics linked as in your demo, will it help you troubleshoot problems? Okay. The truth, the one thing it helped is, in my world, I would have to go back to paper drawings, which are in a completely archive. So as I'm walking to lunch, I have to go get those drawings. I hate it. Of course, we've printed, put them in binders, and put them in the panel, and I can assure you that they don't stay there long. And I'm as guilty as anyone else because I left them in the pit or whatever. So I'm no pointing fingers other than looking in the mirror. So it helps the fact that I have electronic, so that it helped great. Now, if the thing that wasn't turning was on page 17 of the drawings, did QMULUS help me find it on page 17? Did it highlight it? No. In a future webinar, we'll explain to you how an anomaly detection could say things like, there is a 62% chance that the actuator is broken and a 28% chance that a fuse is broken. Okay, so yes, in that regard, but we didn't talk about it here.
And also, I would like to teaser this a bit. We have this new functionality up to come in QMULUS that you can really have a chatbot. Yeah, so in QMULUS, we will have our own chatbot. We are working together with an external company to make that happen. You can upload all your files. And in this case, if you ask the right question, or if you ask the question, it will really point you to page 17. Yeah, so this is up to come, really. So then,
so let's
hopefully
update
we
our
can
LinkedIn
present it in
profile.
the webinar 5. So would be great. Looking forward to it.
Mike, we have to update our LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Will be less important. Let's ask Frank and let's ask Google instead. Ask the chatbot instead of ask Frank.
Okay, so I think it's time to close this webinar. Yeah, thanks for joining. Thanks for attending. We are looking forward to welcome you in the next webinar session. It's about audit, quality, and historical data analysis, as we already mentioned. This will be a bit more exciting. So today we covered a lot of basic SCADA functionalities, and the next session will be a bit more like, okay, what can you do with data? Yeah, so yeah, that's it. Thanks for joining, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.